Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on whether you're sitting here with us in COP or whether you're dialing in from some corner of the world. My name is Jo De Silva. I'm Arup's Global Director for Sustainable Development, and I'm here on behalf of the Real Play Coalition. The Real Play Coalition is a very exciting not-for-profit alliance between UNICEF, National Geographic, Arup, the IKEA Foundation, and the Lego Foundation. And our focus is sharing our skills and knowledge and expertise to change perceptions around the world about the value of play. And today what we're talking about is the value of play and how that relates to how we value nature and how both those things coming together link to the climate change agenda, both in terms of decarbonisation and in terms of building the resilience of communities to the impacts of climate change. The Resilient Cities Network were very much hoping to be with us today as a co-partner of this event, but unfortunately that's not been possible. But we have several city representatives with us who I'll introduce shortly. I have the honour of really chairing this event. We've got an amazing panel of professionals who are experts in nature, play, climate change and cities. Play is absolutely essential for a children's well-being and development and building their resilience. I often talk about resilience from the perspective of a mother. You know, we as mothers know what makes our children resilient. We teach them how to eat properly. We teach them how to manage money. We arrange play dates so they build social networks. And so much of what we do with our children is through learning, through doing, through play. And it's a fundamentally important part of resilience. But also, children learn through their interaction with nature. And as David Attenborough says, no one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they have never experienced. One of the things we need to wake up to is that over the last 20 years, we've changed from being a species that live predominantly in rural environments to being a species that lives predominantly in urban environments. And there are children who have never really experienced nature, certainly in the way that I did as a child, where I touched the soil and leaves and I saw the seasons change. And so we really need to think about how we raise our children to value nature, to look after nature and look after the habitats that are also there and play an important role in carbon eco-sequestration. As cities are trying to recover from COVID, there is a real window of opportunity for local authorities in partnership with their communities and national governments, the private sector and international actors to get together and foster these connections between nature, play, and the climate. And I'm really delighted to be chairing this session because, you know, the Sustainable Development Agenda is really about people and planet, and this is a very people-centered forum. We've got two panels. The first is going to really talk about why play and nature matter and how we can bring these two things together. And the second panel will talk more about practical examples from various cities around the world. So for the first panel, I'm delighted to have here with me Jennifer Lenhart, who is the global leader of WWF Cities. She has got 15 years experience addressing urban environmental challenges. And she's going to talk to us about the role nature plays and biodiversity in particular and how it affects people and children. And then we have two further panelists who are going to join us remotely. Marguerite Hunter-Blair, who's the Chief Executive of Play Scotland, and they're a national organisation here in Scotland who promote the importance of play. And they work very strategically to increase the opportunities children in Scotland have to play. And then finally, Dr. Anne Martin, who's a research fellow at the Social and Public Health Sciences Unit at the Institute for Health and Wellbeing at the University of Glasgow. And she's co-leading a program of research evaluating the impact of play and learning on the health and well-being of children and families and communities. So welcome to all three of you. I just wanted to check that our two remote speakers are actually wired in. Yes. So Marguerite and Anne, I'm told that you can hear us, so I hope that's true. Jennifer, can I hand over to you to kick us off?
Just gonna, no, I don't even need to ask you. I'm so used to Zoom and asking everyone, can you hear me? But it's okay if I stand? Great. Well, we're in week 2 of COP. It can be exhausting, and I think this topic is so refreshing and quite exciting, so I'm very happy to be here with you today. My name is Jennifer Lenhart, and I am the Global Lead for Cities at WWF. And WWF, known as a conservation organization. Why are we working in cities? I don't need to tell all of you. We know all the statistics, so I'll skip over that. But if I could go to the next slide, please. I just wanted to share with you the Living Planet Report data that comes out every 2 years from WWF. And these numbers are staggering. What we're seeing is since 1970, we have seen almost a 70% loss in the population sizes of mammals, fish, amphibians, etc. So this is a huge number. This is a global number. In some parts of the world, it's even worse. I believe in Latin America, for example, it's 90%. So, we need to change this around. When we're talking about climate change, we can't forget how this links to biodiversity. Next slide, please. So within WWF, for the last 10 years, and we're celebrating this anniversary here today, or at this COP, we have had something called the One Planet City Challenge. And in this One Planet City Challenge, we work with cities to do their data reporting. Right now, this is on climate data, but we are very excited that soon this platform will be also incorporating nature data. And so we take this data and we work with partners. So we work with CDP, we work with ICLE, we work with the Global Covenant of Mayors, so that we're all kind of asking the same questions regarding what kind of data we need. So we assess this data, and together with Arup, actually, we are looking at how closely cities are aligning to the Paris Agreement targets, and we provide them guidance if they're not quite there yet. And I'm very happy to say that while we don't have enough cities aligned to the Paris Agreement, we've actually seen a doubling of what we saw 2 years ago. So I don't have all those numbers memorized. They're still being processed, but so far so good. Next slide, please. So within WWF, we have been primarily working with the data, but you can't work on cities and not think about the cities we live in. And especially when we talk about access to play, access to green space, who has that access? And cities, how we design our cities are so car-centric. We're designing cities for cars and not cities for people and nature. And this needs to be said because today is Transport Day. So 40 to 60% in many cities is dedicated to cars and not dedicated to green spaces. And we know that this has huge challenges for all of us as individuals, but especially for children, to really invoke that active curiosity, that safety to move around in our cities, equity, who has access to green spaces, who has access to these giant highways. So a lot to really unpack there. Next slide, please. So, of course, we are sitting here, most of us masked up unless we're speaking, so we can't not talk about COVID. And COVID has been a huge challenge for many of us, but also a great opportunity to really rethink our cities. So if I could go to the next slide and just kind of look at some of the data about cities and health. And I think today or in the next few days, the World Health Organization is putting out a fantastic report connecting health and climate. So just a shout out to the great work that they're doing. But when we talk about cities, 90% of people globally breathe polluted air. In the European Union alone, 1 in 7 deaths is related to water, noise, and air pollution. And of course, inequality plays a huge part of this. This is not the same issue for all urban residents. It depends on where you live, and it depends on how active these issues are. And of course, the way we design our cities also has a big impact on sedentary lifestyles. Are we actively moving around in our cities, or are we sitting in our car, sitting in traffic? Next slide, please. So I just wanted to wrap up with a few images. I just moved back to Stockholm, which is a great city with lots of nature, from the beautiful city of Santiago de Chile. And during COVID, got to see a lot of changes, streets taken over for people, allowing for social distancing, allowing for the recovery of public spaces, and allowing, local businesses to thrive in this. And of course, places that are built like this are also great for children and youth. Next slide, please. And this was well, close to where I was living in Santiago. And to be able to see the Andes with such spectacular vision during the initial stages of lockdown, because we saw rapid drops in air quality, or air pollution, I should say, even if only temporarily, this is a vision of where we can go, and why are we not doing this already now? Next slide. So I'm just wrapping up here, but I wanted to show you one image that what we did and how we kind of work with data at WWF. We take big data, and then we try to make it really simple and communicatable. So we launched this at the COP 2 years ago, but I think it's still worth sharing here today that, this is the Spanish version. I didn't even realize that, but just to share with you, good thing I have all these statistics memorized. But we took the average the average commute time, which is about 30 minutes, and we looked at how many people die of air pollution in that 30 minutes, how much that costs society in terms of fossil fuel subsidies, the loss of life and unhealthy habits because of air pollution in that same amount of time, and looking at, the average commuting distance, which is really around 12 kilometers, which you can easily do on an electric bike, or 8 kilometers on a normal bike. So, we want to really push people towards more active transportation. This is certainly relevant for youth, but also certainly relevant for us adults, and to remember that, we get what we're breathing does come from nature. So my last slide, if you could just move it, and then if you can click on it, there's it's a GIF. So if you see in the corner, all right, well, it should be right here. And if it doesn't work, it usually does, but then it rolls out and it becomes quite green. And I just to point out and really re-envision the kind of cities we live in, because cities are fertile areas. Cities, when humans started to settle down, we chose the best places to live, the places with the best soils, places with access to water, fishing, farming, etc. So, we really need to think, how do we plan our cities? Why are they so concrete instead of places as a green oasis? 40% of protected areas already today are close to 50 kilometers from urban areas. So we really need to integrate and reconnect our environments to our natural environments, to our urban environments. And I will actually stop there.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I'm sorry the video didn't go green. I've seen it before, and it is very impressive, and it does help us imagine a new future. It's that statistic that Jennifer started with is something that I feel very personally. I was born in 1967. There's been 70% loss of biodiversity globally in my lifetime. And unlike climate change, it's not an existential risk. I remember a world that was much more full of birds and bees and nature. And that's a world that I hope future generations of children will be able to grow up in. I'd like to now hand over to Marguerite Hunter-Blair, who, as I said, is the Chief Executive of Play Scotland, and therefore very well equipped to talk to us about why play matters for children. Marguerite, over to you.
Thank you, and hello to everyone. And I'll take my first slide, please. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here today to talk about why play matters. It's a topic I'm very passionate on. I'm very happy to speak about this for about 5 hours, but I think I've got about 5 minutes. So I'm going to condense a lot into my next few slides. Next slide, please. So in Scotland, the breakthrough we had for play in Scotland was when our former Chief Medical Officer, Sir Harry Burns, made the connection between policy and resources and place. And so interesting to follow on now from what Jennifer was saying, because a lot of what I will say now will resonate with place. And what Harry Burns was able to do was make the connections to show that when we bring together policy, resources and placemaking, we get better play opportunities, which leads to improved health and well-being for children and young people, but actually also for all of us. Next slide, please. Play builds resilience in children. And this journey that we've been on in Scotland has led us to have a national play strategy. And it's something I think that every country in the world should have. And so much can be framed around the play strategy that actually benefits children, families, and communities. We also have developed place standard tools, and that has led to us having a place sufficiency duty in our Planning Act, which is about ensuring that there are enough play opportunities and that they are good enough. Next slide, please. Play also builds friendships, but as Jennifer was saying in her presentation, play is a social justice issue, as is placemaking. And placemaking and play both have a role to play in reducing poverty, raising attainment, and improving health and well-being. And the duty that we have is a global duty. The UN, the General Comment 17, United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, expands on what the child's right to play is all about, and says that there is an obligation, it places this obligation on the governments to respect, protect, and fulfill children's right to play by legislation, planning, and budgets. And this COP26 conference and the issues that are raising are children's rights issues. They are embedded in the heart of the concerns that we have for our environment. But we also know that when children have good relationships, when communities have good relationships, we also have better mental health. And that's something that we are particularly concerned with in the wake of our COVID pandemic. Next slide, please. Most importantly, play builds communities. And it's really important that taking forward that social justice issue, that we realise that it is for everyone. That play opportunities have to be accessible and they have to be inclusive. And we mustn't use those two terms interchangeably because they're not interchangeable. Accessible play opportunities and inclusive play opportunities are not always the same thing. And placemaking is at the heart of all of this. So place and play are almost inextricably linked. If we have good places, we have good play opportunities for children to play. And we have better communities for children, and then we have better communities for all of us to grow up and thrive in. So what's happening in the two pictures here, if you can see them on my slide, is that the children in Scotland are playing a game. They're pretending to be the Timothy advert on television where the model washes her hair in sparkling clean fountain water. And this is a Scottish version of that. So my ambition for the children of Scotland and the children in the world is that they have environments that are fit for play. They have environments, they have puddles that are fit to play in. So that every child has the right to play in a muddy puddle that is fit for purpose. Last slide, please. Oh, sorry. So I just had one last slide, which was a quote from Brian Sutton Smith, which says that the opposite of play is not work, it's depression. So I want to then lift that low mood to say, let's have more play in the world for children, all our children, and importantly for ourselves too. Thank you very much.
Marguerite, thank you for very concisely but very clearly making the case for play. We often talk about climate change as an intergenerational justice issue. The way you've talked about play as a social justice issue, and I think the challenge to it is how can we resolve the social justice issue that exists today in a way that addresses the intergenerational justice issue around climate. And with that, I'll pass over to Dr. Anne Martin, who has been looking at the relationship and between outdoor and nature-based play and how that improves the well-being of communities. Anne, over to you.
Thank you. And can I go to my next slide, please? So I'd like to start with making a clear distinction between non-natural outdoor play and nature play. Often the term outdoor play is being used when also referring to nature play, but as the picture on the left shows, not all outdoor play involves nature, and it is rather common to see playgrounds on schoolyards that have no natural element. And allowing children to play in and interact with nature from a young age is important for a generational change towards prevention of diseases and prevention of environment harming behaviors. So from a life course perspective, it is critical for young children to develop a positive relationship with nature that could lead to a lifelong environmental awareness and a healthy and sustainable relationship with nature. So research has shown that children's self-exposure to nature was the strongest predictor of a number of aspects of adult environmental citizenship and of commitments to nature-based activities. And to achieve this, a systems approach where multiple interacting factors are considered is required, as well as the recognition that nature play is a part of the wider system of protecting our environment and health. Next slide, please. So the questions I will answer in my talk, and I can see that you can't see my questions on the slide, but the questions are: what are the well-being benefits of nature versus non-nature play? What affords playing in nature differently to playing in non-natural environments? And finally, I will answer the question of what are the unknowns. Next slide, please. So with my team, we reviewed the evidence on the connection between nature-based early years education and child health outcomes. And this was funded by the Scottish Government. And we included 59 studies of over 10,000 children aged 2 to 7 years. And the key findings were that playgrounds with grass, vegetation, natural elements, rocks, hills, or shaded areas were linked with increased physical activity levels and decreased sensory time. And they were also linked to improved balance, self-regulation, nature relatedness, and play interactions. And related research with children up to the age of 12 years has found similar findings. So next slide, please. So one synthesis of evidence looked at the impact of unstructured nature play on health and found improvements also on physical activity and then also on imagination and creativity. And the second study here on the right reviewed the evidence for associations between interaction with nature and socio-emotional development, among other outcomes, and also concluded links with physical activity, but also social emotional function and development such as socially adaptive behavior, social competence, emotional regulation, and behavioral inhibition. They also identified links with interaction with nature and cognitive development of children, and in particular, memory and attention skills. A reduced risk of obesity and overweight was found also for children over the age of 6 years. And common to all three evidence reviews is the conclusion that there are flaws in the methodology of existing studies, making it difficult to attribute health and well-being benefits to either the nature-based childcare, nature play, or interaction with nature. Next slide, please. So when looking at the difference between nature play and playing in non-natural environments, it is important not only to focus on the health and well-being outcomes. It is important to understand more about what nature play entails and what it provides for children to do differently. With this figure, which we have developed with inputs from parents and practitioners and regulators, I like to illustrate that nature play is made up of several activities that lead to small measurable outputs, which then in turn could influence health and well-being outcomes. And as shown here, one activity could lead to multiple outcomes. But how do we get from nature play activities to the outcomes? So what happens on the way? And that's what I show you in the next slide. Next slide, please. So far we've identified 4 mechanisms that could make nature play better than non-nature play for children's well-being. So one of them is biodiversity. And in a Finnish study where the soil and plants of a daycare center were changed to increase biodiversity, changes in the skin and gut microbiota were found, and that was then linked to improvements in the immune system, and therefore providing children with a chance for daily contact with the diverse vegetation and soil to play in, so such as daycare centers or schoolyards or playgrounds, could improve the immune system and increase resilience. So children playing in naturalized playgrounds tend to engage in one type of play for a longer duration of time. And this type of play is symbolic play, sometimes called dramatic play or imaginative play. And natural elements such as sticks or trees or leaves or water afford the possibilities for symbolic play in particular. And one pathway of the benefits of interaction with nature on being deeply engaged in play could be because of the enhanced cognitive function, so the enhanced attention. And nature provides an intrinsic fascination, functional diversity, rich opportunity for use, and continuous challenge, which might enhance cognitive skills to play for longer. And research work by Mariana Brosoni in Canada, they examined the effect of an intervention to increase opportunities for nature and risky play. And they added natural elements to the outdoor play environment and also found improvements in mental health and pro-social behavior. So, and places with challenging and varied terrain, such as forest grounds with roots or the beach with uneven grounds, challenge children in particular, and in particular their motor skills and balance skills. And also different weather conditions and seasons afford children to challenge themselves. So for example, playing with fallen leaves or running on fallen leaves can challenge children, but where there are no plants and for leaves to fall, then children can challenge themselves while playing. And finally, coming to the urban noise reduction and air filtration, it is well known that green space in cities are known to reduce noise and filter the air, and this can have an effect on the behavior and emotional responses, as well as mental health of children through a restorative effect of nature. And next slide, please. So these are the 5 questions of the unknowns and the uncertainties. And the first one is really what factors influence children's opportunities to play in nature, and how are these factors connected? And I don't have an answer to this question yet, but we made a start and we worked together with organizations like Play Scotland to map the numerous factors linked to the provision of nature play based in the early years. And the factors we identified ranged from educator attitudes and relationship to children over parental factors and childcare practice and resources. Another question is, how long and how often should children play in nature for benefits to occur? And do all children benefit equally? Anecdotally, children with additional support needs benefit greatly from playing in nature. And some research suggests that boys tend to experience more well-being than girls when playing in nature. And maybe there are differences by age. And another unknown is, what is the minimum requirement of the natural elements and diversity to in a play space for benefits to occur? So what type of natural elements, what's the number of natural elements do we really need for as a minimum for city planners to implement? And then finally, what are the most suitable methods to measure nature play? So both on the environmental side of things, so the measurement of environmental features, although progress has been made, so we know how to measure them, but there is no standardized way, and as well as measuring children's play. So a bit more work needs to be done there. And addressing these uncertainties will allow developing nature play guidelines for city planners, educators, practitioners, parents, and other decision makers to follow and to implement. And it is important to engage all these different people who are part of the decision-making process, and research should be part of the process too. And if we fail to engage with all aspects of the system or miss out on one, then we risk making the much needed progress of preserving and increasing natural spaces and the biodiversity for children to use. Next slide, please. And then finally, I'd just like to thank my team, and in particular, Dr. Paul McCrory, with whom I'm co-leading the work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'd like to thank all 3 panelists. I think between you, you've put forward a very compelling case for the importance of nature in cities, the role nature plays in terms of our well-being, but then particularly the importance of play. And I really wanted to emphasize the point that Marguerite made about it's not just the quantity of play for children, it is the quality of play. and then that research that Anne has been working on to really be able to sort of demonstrate and quantify what that means in practice, and encouraging us to maybe design different play spaces, different environments for our children, and maybe we should have less play parks, less cars, and just a lot more natural open spaces, which would also help address climate change in so many ways. So I'd just like to say a final thank you to our first panel. I wish you could have all been here in person. I hope you will all get together offline and continue the conversation. And I'd like to hand over now to our second panel. I think we have one person here, only in person, which is Neil Emmett. Neil, would you like to come and join me here? We've got some high stools over the other side, but it's a bit lonely perching on a stool by yourself. And our other, so Neil Emmett is the leader of Rochdale Metropolitan Council. I apologise, my notes are wrong, and leads the portfolio for environment of the Greater Manchester City region. I'll introduce all four panellists now in the interest of time. Richard Mclaren, welcome Richard, who is the Resilience Project Coordinator in Belfast and has worked with the Resilience Unit of Belfast City Council for the last 3 years. Lara Giuliani, apologies if I haven't pronounced your name precisely right, who's the Deputy Chief Resilience Officer at the City of Milan and is in charge of the city's resilience strategy. And then Ahmed Abulaban, who is from Ramallah, and he is the Ramallah City Director since 2006. And I have a feeling that maybe Ahmed we met at a 100 RC event quite a few years ago. And then finally, Ariadna Miquel, who is the Head of Urban Strategy at Barcelona. So we've got a very varied panel from very different cities. And they're all going to share with us the ideas and practical examples that they've been implementing in their cities of how nature-based solutions can create healthier, more inclusive, and importantly, more playful cities. I'm going to ask Richard to start from Belfast. Richard, can I hand over to you?
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to take part in this event. I wanted to say, first of all, hello from Belfast. We've recently become members of the Real Play Coalition as one of the 8 ambassador cities. We are a member of the Resilient Cities Network, and we've recently joined the WWF One Planet City Challenge. So I'd like to say we're proud to be part of all of those initiatives, and they've really helped us to drive forward some of the thinking around resilience and regeneration in Belfast. So I'll go through some of that, the work that we're doing at the moment. If you could have the next slide, please. I just wanted to say very briefly something about Belfast itself. So as you'll know, it's a city in a post-conflict context. And the impact that actually had on the city, you'll see in the top left of the screen there that there used to be security barriers ringing the city centre in the 1970s because it became an economic target during the period of conflict. So that had an effect where people were actually cut off from the city centre. And some of the work that we're doing at the moment is to try to make Belfast city centre a place for people again, rather than just a place for shops and retail. And you'll see that there are still today barriers around the city. There are peace walls. There's imagery of paramilitary and groups which still exist throughout communities in Belfast. So young people today are really growing up in a context which is still affected by a period of extended conflict in Northern Ireland. Can I have the next slide, please? So play, as it's evolved in the city, you'll see some images there of very traditional play spaces, and often they are within nature. They're within parks and they're within green spaces, but they themselves are not, as Anne was talking about, made up of nature-based play activity. So we're trying to move away, maybe now more go back to bringing nature into those play spaces. And you'll see an image on the top right-hand side, which is actually from the 1970s, which was a gentleman called Mickey Marley who had a roundabout which he toured around Belfast on the back of a horse. And I just thought that spoke really to something in the spirit of the city about how play is important. And even during that period of conflict, play was really important. And that was an opportunity for young people to come out in urban settings and get involved in play opportunities. If you could have the next slide, please. So recently, 2018, there was a major fire in Belfast city centre, which again had the effect of cutting people off from city centre. Some of the roads were severed. So what Belfast City Council did was look at some meanwhile use projects and pop-up play opportunities. At the same time, the resilience strategy was being developed, so it was a chance for us to look at integrating play into the resilience work that we were doing. If I could have the next slide, please. And the success of that pop-up play really led to the creation of a play space within the city centre. There was a number of consultation events, which you can see on the images in front of you there. If we could have the next slide, please. And it resulted in a place called Cathedral Gardens being created. There was a public space there previously, which was unused. It was the site for antisocial behaviour, people using drugs and so on. So it was a place that was not a friendly space for young people or anybody really to go to. But it was in a very central location within Belfast, and it was beside local universities. So the opportunities were there, and Belfast City Council took it and tried to make that into a really positive place, colourful place in the heart of the city centre to try to draw people back in and try to give young people somewhere to go. It consists of a number of play opportunities for all ages, we hope, not just for young people. And it's really been used as a test bed for some of the ideas around play. And myself and colleagues really cite it at the moment when we're talking to other people in the city, and we're trying to promote this idea of integrating play into the regeneration of the city. If I could have the next slide, please. I mentioned the resilience strategy, very important document in Belfast, which has allowed us to push forward on a number of fronts. We've made the participation of children and young people one of the three strategic sort of themes within that strategy. And we're talking about, we're building on work that was done previously by Arup, for example, about urban places. So we're talking about the quality of urban childhoods. We're talking about how we can make city centre public realm play spaces better for young people and for people of all ages, and how we can become a more playful city at all levels. If you could have the next slide, please. We commissioned a piece of work with Arup, and we developed an urban childhood framework, which we launched about 2 years ago. And that piece of work has been a really important one for us because it's a spatial tool for analysing places around the city. So for example, in the image you can see, we looked at a space around the riverfront in Belfast, and it was quite shocking actually to see how little green space and how little there was in the way of play. So people were passing through many of these spaces and there was no reason to stay there. So it's a tool that we want to use and really embed in the planning and regeneration in the city. If I could have the next slide, please. And importantly, we spoke to young people during the course of developing that report. So it wasn't just the ideas of council officials and consultants. It was young people themselves who were saying Belfast City Centre is not a friendly and attractive and welcoming place for us. And here are some of the ideas of what we would like to see in the city centre and what would bring us in there. So that was really an important part of the work. If I could have the next slide, please. And part of my work as well, I work in a unit which is looking after the resilience of the city and also the climate plans for the city. So I manage the Belfast 1 Million Trees project, which is our tree planting initiative. And because I'm involved in both of these streams of work, it's a real opportunity to link and integrate some of the thinking across various different areas of work. So if I could have the next slide, please. We've developed 1 Million Trees initiative over the last 2 years. So council coordinates that along with a whole range of city stakeholders. We've got funding from the Woodland Trust. We're in the process of developing a tree strategy and doing a Belfast Eye Tree Eco report. So we're looking at the benefits of trees and green spaces for carbon sequestration, but also for physical and mental health and well-being. Also biodiversity improvements and flood alleviation, and really want to look at it in its widest sense, the benefits of this. So if we could have the next slide, please. We have a schools programme within that. So 34 of our local schools in Belfast have come forward wanting to be part of that initiative. So that's obviously an opportunity for us to work with young people and look at how we can build nature into the school setting as well. And I know Paris have done a lot of good work, you know, in the Oasis schools. So we're trying to learn from some of the good practice from other cities as well. If I could have the next slide, please. That's just an example of one of the schools, Campbell College in Belfast. So you can see there the opportunities that exist when a school that has a really big estate, a lot of green space already, but they want to make improvements and work with us to engage with their young people. If I could have the next slide, please. We're working with a group called Pocket Forests, who are based in Dublin. So you can see they're building on the Japanese idea of tree planting, the Miyawaki method, which is putting trees in small spaces. So you can see it's about bringing this playful idea. So it's not just about planting trees in woodland, it's about what you can do in temporary meanwhile uses as well, and in urban spaces which don't lend themselves to the creation of woodlands. So you can see that a small forest is being created in a skip, for example. So it's about capturing people's imagination. I think that's something that speaks to bringing a playful attitude into some of the work that we're doing. If I could have the next slide, please. I just wanted to mention as well, National Tree Week is coming up at the end of November, start of December. So we're going to use that as an opportunity to do a tree giveaway event. And within one of the parks in Belfast, and we're going to have tree-based poetry. We're going to do folklore walks. And we're going to engage with young people. So again, I see all of these work streams as opportunities to build play and engage with young people and integrate across a wide range of different issues. I think that's my last slide. So thank you very much.
Richard, thank you very much for sharing those really inspiring examples. And I'm not sure if you heard it, but or others dialing in will have heard it, but I'm afraid that in the middle of your talk, there was the brief announcement to remind us all here to wear our face masks. But it was only a very short part of your presentation that was talked over. But really inspiring examples, both from nature and play in Belfast. And I'd like to now hand over to Ilaria and to share some of the exciting work that she's been leading in Milan, some of which I know about already because my colleagues at Arup have been working with you. Ilaria, over to you. And could I request that you and all the panelists please try and keep to the 5 minutes because we've got a big panel because we wanted to hear from all of you and I don't want to run out of time. Ilaria, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all, and it's my pleasure to be here and to contribute to this event. So I'm Ilaria, I'm the Deputy Chief Resilience Officer of the City of Milan. So we can go to the next slide, please. I'm part of the City Resilience Department, the department that has been created within the City of Milan after the city won the 100 Resilient City competition. So we are still part of the Resilient City Network. We are part of the Environmental and Transition Department. Again, it's a new department that has been created 3 years ago in order to enhance the commitment to the environmental transition process. Next slide, please. We as City Resilient Department has been working together with different other colleagues and departments, especially the Urban Planning Department, in order to enhance the topic of environment, green and sustainability within the City Master Plan. The City Master Plan, the Milan City Master Plan, has been updated 2 years ago. Back in 2019, and we included some specific rules within the plan in order to give the proper space, the proper value to the topic of sustainability and to the topic of resilience. Within this framework, within the framework of the City Master Plan, we have been working together with other colleagues of the municipality on the topic of the public space. And if we go to the next slide, I will show you some specific example. First of all, the topic of the public space within the lens of green solution, nature-based solution, and in general, green strategy. So since the 2018, we have been working on the urban afforestation plan that have a very ambitious goal actually, because we are planning to plant 3 million of trees within the city of the metropolitan city. The claim was 3 million of trees, exactly as the 3 million of inhabitants that are living within the metropolitan city of Milan. We are working on this. Of course, you can imagine that there are different challenges that we need to face, especially, of course, the availability of areas where we can plant these 3 million of trees, together with the economic, let's say, challenges and aspects. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Thank you. Again, working on the topic of the public space, we as municipality of Milan, especially after the first lockdown, we have been enhancing the network of the bicycle lane. We were considering this strategy within our Milan adaptation strategy that was prepared and promoted exactly in order to implement solutions and strategies that were answering all the new needs that were coming out from the pandemic situation. And in order to have new ways within the city to circulate, to move here and there, we decided to implement and to improve all the network for bicycle lane. And we have been able to create somehow new 50 kilometers of bicycle lane in the last 2 years, 1 year and a half, more or less. And we call this strategy Strade Aperte. This strategy, if we go to the next slide, actually follow a previous strategy that is called Piazze Aperte. So again, working very hardly on the topic of the public space has allowed us to somehow create new squares within the city, within all the neighborhoods of the city. So what we are doing through this strategy is to remove cars from some abandoned areas here and there, put some greenery, some benches and some ping pong tables, some playground as well for children, and in order to give them these spaces to citizens. So that's how we create new availability of public space. And that's how we somehow contribute to the topic of inclusiveness, to the topic of multicultural integration that was mentioned before. Following this strategy, we can go to the next slide. We decided to look at another opportunity in order to work on the topic of public space, that are the play streets. We have been studying different experiences from other Italian and foreign cities, European cities especially, in order to understand how other municipalities, other European municipalities have been able to create new areas within the city, especially dedicated to the topic of play and dedicated to children. The topic of play streets has been as well included within our adaptation strategy that I was mentioning before, that was part of the first answer after the lockdown in order to face the pandemic situation. So we were considering within the city, within the urban environment, where we could have new areas for children in order to let them play, to let them have some interaction with their peers. This was, of course, because schools were closed at the time, so we were considering the needs and the necessity to create actually new specific places. We start working on this. Then, of course, fortunately, we have been included, and we met Arup with the Real Play Coalition, so we decided to work together on this topic. We used this project in order to let's say, going deep of the topic of play, especially in one specific neighborhoods. We can go to the next slide, please. And together with them, they helped us to analyze how the topic of play was considered within the neighborhoods we decided to work on. So we were at that time trying to understand which could have been the possibility, the opportunity in order to implement the first case of play street within the city of Milan, for the city of Milan. And the integration with their work was perfect. So they helped us to understand in the topic we decided to work in, how was considered the issue of play, so which were the spaces available for children, how children were considering their neighborhoods, So we go to the next slide, and we start working on a specific neighborhood on the southern east part of the city of Milan, which is Rogoredo. It's a quite peripheral area. We decided to work on a specific street. We closed the street. The street is close to a school. So we closed the street and we removed cars from the streets. And during the last 2 days of school, so before summer vacation, we gave back the streets to children, to their family. We have been able, thanks again to the Real Play Coalition and to the Lego Foundation, to organize specific workshops with the Lego Foundation in order to let children understand and imagine how they were, imagining the city of the future, their city for the future. And we have been able as well to sign a collaboration pact, a collaboration agreement with other local associations in order to let them organize new activities and new workshops during those 2 days. We did the same thing actually with the second pilot in September. Actually was smaller, and we didn't sign a collaboration pact with the association, with the local association. But again, Arup and the Real Play Coalition and the Lego Foundation were with us. We did the same project. We closed the street, we removed cars, and we gave back the streets to children in order to let them play. Okay, I think I'm done. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ilaria, for all those examples from Milan. I'm going to now move on to Ahmed, who is based in a very different city, in Ramallah. Ahmed, over to you.
Thank you so much. At the beginning, I'm so delighted to take part of this unique session and such an important conference like this one. And I would like to start my presentation by thanking our strategic partners, Resilient Cities Network and the Coalition Play, that they offering for me this opportunity to be part from this conference. Next slide, please. Next. Okay. I do believe that there are so many definitions about nature play. And at the beginning, I would like to mention that I agree with Anne, what she mentioned in the beginning about the distinction between nature play and unnatural play. And there are so many definitions, but I do believe this is the unstructured play in an outdoor setting without any control from anybody, from adults, from parents, for anyone. That's the most important definition. Next slide, please. What we gain from nature play, because we feel so nostalgic for those days in the old time, it improves our physical, social, emotional. It gives the children the opportunity to respect or to understand nature, to respect nature, to understand and to respect environment, to enjoy the nature, to be more creative, to be more initiative, to build the self-confidence for them. Next slide, please. I feel for these days and in our time, when we were children, we used to spend most of our daily time, most of it outdoor playing without any kind of control. We created so many games using natural woods, rocks, and all natural issues to enjoy our time. As I mentioned here, the sky was our limit to create any kind of games that we enjoy the most. When we were in the Scouts camp, we used to go to the hills, to the mountains, to the valleys to collect woods just to enjoy the bonfire at that time. We used to have that kind of competition between who will be able to climb that hill and who will be past that. That was an amazing time. Next slide, please. These are some of the pictures that of about some games that we used to play. There are so many, and I would like to just to share with you that I shared with my friends in my Facebook page about 3 days ago, that just give me an examples about such games that you used to play when you were children. It was an amazing responses from them. You can feel that most of our generation and elders, they feel so nostalgic about those days. And with that, I will go to the next slide. I do believe that there are two main challenges, or maybe two main enemies for nature play. It's the urbanization and the technology, the technology revolution or technology development, what I would like to mention. Urbanization with the two parts, the building expansion area and the infrastructure development. And I do believe that we need that for sure. We need that. It's logic to have that urbanization, but at the same, it was the side effect for urbanizations that we are losing the nature, the space that for children to play, where we used to play when we used to go to the mountains. So now most of our mountains, most of our areas are urbanized, and there are so many buildings. The other one, the technology, and I think most of our children, and also we were affected by that. We have been addicted with different kind of devices, laptops, iPads, mobile, PlayStation or others. So that's, we are spending, or our children spending most of their time indoor instead of having, or instead of enjoying the outdoor area that we used to have it in the old times. Next slide, please. What we have in Ramallah city, we are trying to keep that spirit for the nature play. So by organizing different kind of activities, annual activities, such as the annual festival for children, which we call it Noir Nissan Children, Noir Nissan Festival. That's some of the pictures about it. And the other one of our examples, which we call it in Arabic, Yalla al-Hadika, which means let's go to the garden, and the Scouts camp. These are just some examples for that. Next slide, please. At the same time, because we do believe that the main goal for any city in the world, it's a common goal, it's to improve the quality of life for our citizens and to match their needs, to match their expectations. One of the most important needs, which we do believe from our experience, it was public parks. That's why we have almost every year we open new park for children, for youth, for adults, and for their families. There are some examples for these parks. Next slide, please. At the same time, we are trying to create and to establish a huge projects to offer these kind of facilities for the youth and for children and for adults, or for the different kind of members of the family. This is one of our projects, which we called it the Sport and Village, and Sport and Youth Village. Next slide, please. And just a few days ago, we had the opening ceremony for the sports track in Ramallah, and you can see from the pictures, most of the children are so excited to use it. Next slide, please. And I think it will be the last one. As I mentioned, we are taking advantage of any opportunity which we are having. So we are part of the Real Coalition, Real Play Coalition, and at the same time we'll apply for another initiative, international initiative, which I'm trying to convince you to apply for that, which focus about the 95 centimeters for the children, which we call Urban 95 Academy, and Wellbeing Cities Award. All of that, it's under our membership in the Resilient Cities Network. With that, I will end. I try to use my time in an efficient way, and I hope that I did it. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Ahmed, for sharing those experiences from Ramallah. At this juncture, I just wanted to share a personal anecdote with you. Many years ago now, it seems, I worked very closely with the Rockefeller Foundation and some amazing people across the world, and we did research in 15 cities globally, which led to the City Resilience Index. It was a tool that was then picked up by 100 resilient cities, and then the Resilient Cities Network, to help cities think about how to make their cities more resilient. I never imagined when we were doing that work that it would lead to a conversation like this about the role of children and play in contributing to the resilience of the cities. All these cities that are talking to us today were invited by the Resilient Cities Network. I think it's just, for me, it's very exciting to think that, we're all here at COP or joining COP remotely. We can do small things. We don't know the ripple effect of them, but it maybe leads us forwards into a better world. We have two more cities in this panel. Firstly, I'd like to hand over here at COP itself, in real life. Neil, thank you for joining us. Neil's going to talk about his work in the north of England. Neil, over to you.
Thank you very much. Well, hello everyone. It's great to be here at this morning's event to talk about the vital role that nature can play in children's well-being and resilience. I'm Councillor Neil Emmett. There is a slight error. I am actually the leader of Rochdale Borough Council, not Bury Borough Council. And in Rochdale, our claim to fame is we're very proud to be the birthplace of the cooperative movement, which took place well over 150 years ago and has spread throughout the world. But I'm here primarily today because I'm the portfolio lead for the Green City region at the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, and I was appointed to that position by our City Region Mayor Andy Burnham in May of this year. And I lead work across Greater Manchester to deliver on our vision for a green, resilient and carbon neutral city region. The role of nature in our health and well-being has become increasingly recognised over the past few years. After 18 months during which many of the world's children have had to spend time at home and away from their classrooms, the importance of access to nature for children and young people has become more important than ever. And the evidence is clear. Access to green space can stimulate the development of motor skills, as well as cognitive, emotional, social and physical development in children. All of this can lead to better health in childhood and better ability to maintain healthier lifestyles in adulthood. Green spaces also play an important role in children's and young people's social networks and can promote social inclusion. Investment in quality green space is therefore an investment in our children's future. This is even more important in our towns and cities, where pressures on green spaces are greatest. In Greater Manchester, we know the value of our natural environment, which provides £1 billion worth of benefits to us each year and every year, and benefits through recreation to physical and mental health make up the majority of these. In Greater Manchester, local government, environmental non-governmental organisations and the health sector have all been working together to foster more and better connections between children and young people and their natural environment, and to bring more of those benefits to them. I wanted to give you just a few examples of this today to illustrate the breadth and depth of this activity. First, one of our top priorities is bringing nature into schools. Our community forest, City of Trees, is working with schools across Greater Manchester to green school grounds. They provide free trees and run hugely popular Plant a Tree Days with children. These not only provide learning on the day, but leave a legacy of new nature-rich areas in schools that also provide fruit from newly planted orchards. We're also developing proposals to bring investment into nature-based solutions at a cohort of Greater Manchester's schools. These would bring biodiverse rain gardens to schools, which would help manage water, reducing the risk of flooding and providing a living educational resource to pupils. Secondly, we're connecting children and young people with nature outside their schools. At the new 150-acre Royal Horticultural Society Bridgewater Gardens in Salford, 3,000 pupils have engaged with planting and gardening in just 6 months. Through a specific programme, the Green City Challenge, groups work together to design a garden or green space for their school or local community to make it resilient to climate change. In another of our boroughs, in Oldham, young people have been helping to co-design a proposed visitor centre and learning centre for the new 160 eco park called Northern Roots, learning about green building design in the process. Thirdly, we're looking at harnessing the power of nature to help with children and young people's mental health. Through its My Place project, our local wildlife trust works with young people from deprived backgrounds and who often face long waits for mental health services. It helps them reconnect with nature through activities like nature walks and food growing. 90% of young people using the service reported being more active, and 80% made new friends. We're now working to use this learning and scale up green social prescribing, health services prescribing time in nature rather than just drugs or medicine. This is supporting patients of all ages to engage in local nature-based activities to improve their mental health. All these activities are supporting children and young people to better connect with nature in our city region. We know how to do this. We have the knowledge and tools. The challenge is to go further and faster and scale this up. And I'm looking forward to hearing and discussing how we can do that during the rest of this morning's session. Thank you very much.
Neil, thank you. I know that Manchester has a really progressive climate plan, and it's fantastic to hear that nature is such a central part of it and that children are. And I just love your sentence, that investing in green space is an investment in our children's future. It's not just an investment in the health of the planet, and that's really what, for me, brings it all together. I'd like to just go to our final speaker, Ariadna Miguel, who is Head of Urban Strategy in Barcelona and is joining us remotely. Ariadna, over to you.
Hello from Barcelona. I am very glad to be here sharing these interesting experiences. Thank you for inviting Barcelona. Our mission in the urban ecology area where I work is to change the urban model in order to have a city more healthy, more safe, to have more justice, more equity, and to have more nature in the city, and focus all the efforts on specific groups of citizens that have specific needs, like old people, women, or children. That's why 2 or 3 years ago, we present the plan for play in Barcelona's public spaces. Its principal mission is to understand the play as a tool to change the city, as a principal motor to change the city. And we want to have to pass from a city with playing areas to a playable city. We want that the children and the people play in the whole city, not only in the places specific to play, because we think that play is so fundamental in the development of the children and also for the whole society. That's why we propose to have more multiple options for creative, challenging, and healthy child development, more diverse and stimulating spaces, areas with contact with nature and greenery, and also we are trying to make the areas more inclusive and more for all ages, no, for genders and for different abilities. I will show you only four programs, no, that are inside this plan, but I think that are the most important programs that we have, the more successful programs, and only 4 photos. Next slide. One of the things that we are doing is to build these singular playgrounds that are designed specifically for the site. They are more diverse, more inclusive. They have more levels of risk. And we have worked with the children of the surrounding of the schools of the surroundings to ask what activities they like the most, no? Like, and the winners' activities was jumping, slide, climb. So we designed these big, these singular areas, no, in the different parts of the city to appeal and to put in the center, no, the playing activities, no. This is another way to thought these playing areas. Next slide. Another program that we are carrying out is this program that is it's called Open Streets. It's like Strada Aperta, but more easier, no? Because we are cutting the traffic every weekend in 2 important streets of the city, in order that the people could stay and work over the city, and also this free playing, no? Because we think that it's important to have these spaces where the play could happen with freedom, no? With not specifically furniture to play, no? Next slide. Also, another program that we have is Let's Protect the Schools, that we have more or less in Barcelona 600 schools, and we are planning to improve the surroundings of 200 schools in these next years, in 3 years, removing the traffic and making these surroundings more safer and more healthier, and also more kind to have this playing, no, this free playing that we said, no, this and we put some elements for the children could play more free, no, and more safer. And also the next slide. Another program that we are carrying that is very famous, it's the most important program that of transformation of the city transformation is this super block program that its goal, this objective is to remove the cars of the city center of the most part of the more or less the 30 part of the city, of the whole city, no, and it consists in to remove the traffic from some streets to become streets more healthier, more greener, and with other uses like play. No, as you know, Barcelona is very crowded. It's very dense city, and we have a problem with public space. It's very crowded. So we have designed this network of green hubs and green streets and green new squares in a city, in a central city that it's very dense, and we have this lack of green areas, to more, like next slide, to have this this kind of streets more greener, without vehicles, and with the objective to have a green area like this within 200 meters of our homes. So this change is a plan for the whole city, and is an idea to have this network in the whole city, of this network of these green streets in the whole city. And now we are going to build 4 streets from all this city center. We are now doing the projects for next year to have this change in this in the city center, that we thought that it's important to have this city more healthier and more safer, like other panelists had said, no, to have play, no, to have the playing as an important thing in the society. We would have to change our cities, and that's what our tool to change our city. Thank you. Thank you for. I will left here.
Thank you so much, and I think your final words are all too true. Picking up on Ahmed, who felt the enemies of play were urbanisation and technology. Earlier we heard the problem was cars. If we're going to address play, we need to change our cities. Unfortunately, because of the time and the challenges of technology, we're not going to be able to have a sort of in-the-round discussion. And I just wanted to sort of highlight a few points, and then wanted to end this session with Louise is going to talk to us about the Inspire Awards, and you're going to get a chance to vote. And Zara is going to share the Playful Cities Toolkit. So I wanted to just hand over to both of them. They're joining us virtually. Louise is from UNICEF, from the Child Friendly Cities Initiative. And she's going to tell us about the UNICEF and Real Play Coalition Inspires Awards, and give you the opportunity to vote for the best play-based solution. Louise, I'm handing over to you with just saying, I'm afraid we've only got 5 minutes because we're trying to get through these last few things at the end of the session. So apologies if it's a bit rushed.
Hi there, I'm Louise Tivon. I'm UNICEF's global lead for the Child Friendly Cities Initiative. I'm really happy to join you here today to introduce a very exciting initiative that we're working on together with the Real Play Coalition. On 17th November, UNICEF will host the Child Friendly Cities and Local Governments Inspire Awards. The awards are a celebration of existing commitment of local governments and other local actors to advance children's right and well-being, with the purpose of mobilizing even more local governments and other actors to do more and to do better for children by sharing good practices. So cities from around the world have submitted their excellent examples to the awards. 18 of these have been shortlisted for the public vote. This year, the awards will culminate in a virtual event, an awards ceremony on 17th November. And you can register on our website if you would like to participate in this. This year, the awards will be given in 6 categories, and we're partnering with the Real Play Coalition on the category on play, leisure, and family time to celebrate the city's commitment to play. Sorry, and then we had to cut some out, so you just have to bear with me. But the 3 shortlisted candidates for the category are Regensburg in Germany, Navapolas from Belarus, and Bucaramanga from Colombia. And you'll be able also to, on a website, to go and vote for your preferred entry there. and I believe you should be able to see the link, yes, on the screen. So yes, so now I would like you to vote for your preferred entry now or later when you get the time to watch it. And yes, and please follow the link on the slide to access the voting page. So thank you so much for participating in this, and we look forward to seeing you on 17th November. Thank you.
Louise, thank you so much, and I really encourage everyone to log on and join the event on the 17th of September, and to think about how your city can get involved in the awards next year. And finally, Sara Canderacci is joining us from Arup in London, where she leads our work on inclusive and resilient cities, including child-centered design and planning. Sara.
Hi everyone. Hi. So yeah, next slide, please. So thanks, Joe, and thanks to the other panelists. So today, on behalf of the Real Play Coalition, I'd like to present and launch the Playful Cities Toolkit, which is a new resource developed by Arup and the LEGO Foundation to help reclaiming the value of play in cities. Next slide. So as we learned from the other panelists, play is essential for children, well-being and development, and also to build communities and also to build resilience. We also learned the importance of the built environment and nature as critical for children. And we learned that a child and family-friendly approach to design and planning has the potential to unite a range of progressive agendas and generate multiple benefits, not only for children, but the entire society and for the planet. Next slide. Thanks. And we saw that play is struggling to find a place in children's life, and low play lives and play poverty are seen across all strata of society and socioeconomic levels. There are many barriers of play that we discussed today, and what we're addressing with the Playful Cities Toolkit is in particular the lack of evidence and knowledge of the state of play in cities, and also the role that the built environment has for children development. Also the lack of guidance or limited guidance to support the design of play spaces. Next slide, please. So to address these challenges and gaps, as Arup, we've been collaborating with the other members of the Real Play Coalition to generate evidence on the value of play in design and planning, and provide guidance and practical solutions to support the design and adoption of play-based solutions and interventions. So we started by developing the Urban Play Framework, already mentioned by Ilaria, which is a planning tool that helps understand the different dimensions of play in cities. And so we identified 3 key dimensions that are critical for designing playful urban environments. These are facilitation for play, time and choice for play, and spaces and facilities for play. And these 3 dimensions are assessed and understood at 3 different urban scales, which are the household, the school, the neighborhood, and city level. Next slide, please. So the Urban Play Framework is at the core of the Playful City Toolkit, which provides a range of resources to support government authorities, urban practitioners, and local communities to understand the complexity of play in cities, and also to guide design of play-based interventions, and also to measure their impact. The toolkit is an interactive document, and is structured on a simplified design process comprising 3 main phases: understand, design, and measure. And it's possible to navigate the toolkit and to download existing tools by clicking on the underlined text. Next slide, please. So in the understand section, you can download tools and templates to guide your desk-based study, your fieldwork, and also to develop a summary report with key challenges and opportunities identified in the target area. Consider different urban scales and systems. Next slide, please. In this slide, you can see some of the tools that you can download from the toolkit. In particular important is the play assessment tool, which is structured considering the 3 dimensions of the Urban Play Framework. Next slide, please. In the design section, you can download tools to support the planning and design of play-based interventions. Next slide, please. In particular, you can download the play prioritization tool that can be used to undertake a consistent evaluation of the factors that influence children's play experience within a specific site against a set of benchmarks of what good looks like. And you can visualize it through a spider graphic. Next slide, please. We also included a selection of case studies to inspire multiple ideas, actions, and strategies aimed at promoting play in cities. Next slide, please. From the measurement section, you can download the Play Impact tool, which is quite similar to the prioritization tool, but allows to evaluate the impact of play-based interventions, the impact that has had on children and on the broader community. Next slide, please. So the urban play framework and supporting tools have been used in 3 different cities and contexts to reclaim play, and one is London, and then Cape Town and Milan. Next slide, please. In London, we work with the Barnet City Council, the Royal Natal Planning Institute in the community of Burnoak. Next slide, please. We undertook a comprehensive participatory assessment co-creation process involving children, caregivers, and the broader community. And the results of the study is summarized in the Play Profile report, which is available online. Next slide, please. We also work in an informal township of Kalicha in Cape Town, where we also undertook a comprehensive assessment, engaged children, local community, also through a photo competition and co-creation workshops. Next slide, please. And with the insight from this research, we designed a network play spaces, which were designed to stimulate the development of social, emotional, and cognitive skills for children through play activities. Next slide, please. And the activation of Play in Kalicha is ongoing, and we're going to finalize it by end of this year. Next slide, please. In Milan, as mentioned by Ilaria, we also follow the same process, undertake a comprehensive assessment, engaging children, co-creating, co-designing with them. Next slide, please. And we also organized a play street in Milan to gather additional information to inform the design of a play strategy. Next slide. In fact, we developed this play strategy, which is focusing on key 3 pillars: the creation of a network play spaces, the promotion of the role of the school at the center of neighborhood relations, and the use of digital play as a bridge to physical play. And a summary of the work is available on the report, which is also online. Sorry to rush a bit through the slides, but time is quite limited, but yeah. Joe, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zara, and thanks to both you and Louise for, I'm sorry that you were so rushed at the end. I hope for everyone listening today, you are as inspired as I am about what's going on in cities, and that I think with awards and toolkits are really important to sort of actually empower and equip others to follow suit and to share experiences. And as Neil says, to make sure that we do this at scale. The presentations that we've heard today, are totally convincing to me that play is absolutely vital to the health and well-being of children today. But it's also about their ability, through nature-based play in particular, to learn, to grow, to adapt, and to develop, so they're able to navigate an uncertain future. By investing in nature, we're investing not just in the planet, but we're investing in our children's health, and we're transforming our cities, which, as Ilaria said, is absolutely central to the change we need to make in the world to address climate change, but also to address the other challenges we face around biodiversity and inequity. So I just wanted to end by thanking again all our speakers and the audience, the Real Play Coalition and the Resilient Cities Network who made this event happen, to our technical team here in the Resilience Hub. Thank you for making it all work seamlessly. And to remind you that there is another event on a similar theme tomorrow, Our Climate, Our Future, an intergenerational dialogue, which is being co-organized by the Real Play Coalition and the Cities for Children Alliance, and that will be in the green zone, so you don't need a pass, so please share this with people who can't get into the blue zone, on Thursday the 11th at 2 p.m. So I hope many of you will pick up the conversation then, and look forward to continuing the conversation and working with you all in future. Thank you again for joining.